you are most welcome to our last in the series in the month of February, where we have been looking at aflatoxins from different perspectives. And we were deliberating, how do we crown up the month? The last in the series on aflatoxin on 28th February 2025. With all minds together, today we would like to ground it once again that aflatoxins are a critical public health and economic concern. The aspects of aflatoxin are many, and today we would like to do reflecting on the practical and the context-based solutions to kick aflatoxin out of aflatoxins from Uganda, to kick them out and from Uganda. And like we say every day, we would love to use Uganda as a case study. If we can do practices, we can do certain aspects in Uganda, you can apply them wherever you are to localize them. When a practice is good, it can be practiced anywhere and it can be put into a local context. So today, our discussions, our different perspectives are going to be practical, looking at the context-based solution to kick aflatoxins out of Uganda. And where you see Uganda, or where you hear mention of Uganda, if you are in East Africa, put your country. If you're on the African continent, if you're in the global world, put your country in perspective. Put your local actions, put your farmer actions, put your business actions, and all of those. And if you're in policy, put your policy actions. Those of us who are consumers, who consume what farmers give us, what food businesses give us, what policy gives us, we are going to put on our consumer lenses. And we look at how best, as consumers, do we need to speak out? Do we need to be cautious? What role do we play? But all that put into contextation, we would love to have deliberations. And today, my panelists are our usual panelists. We have got Professor Kai from Makerere, and we have got Agnes was bestowed on the doctorate. So as of now, it is still honorary. So we have got Dr. Agnes Chilavo, the Chief Executive of Food Rights Alliance, and we will be joined by another one who has been given an honorary of Omsao, the doctor, Bernard, who is making a presentation somewhere, then he will be joining us. So today we have three panelists, and the two who are here are going to give us from their perspective. Starting with you, Professor, how best can we translate research into action? What research can do, the academia institutions do to expedite the kicking out of aflatoxin from Uganda and elsewhere? What are these challenges? What are these gaps? Which research is available that can help us deal with the vagaries of aflatoxin? As you have told me, you are somewhere training the communities in Kasai. How are you using research, and how are you localizing aflatoxin so that people get to understand it and start fighting against it? Prof, you have got some 15 minutes to share with us so that you go back to duty. So you're most welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chimera. Thank you very much for this important session. And good morning, everybody. I want to also to thank whoever is managing, the session, and I also welcome and thank Madam Agnes Kirabo, Progress Alliance, for the struggle that you are really putting in to ensure that people get to know about aflatoxins and then manage, practically the issue. Viewers, as you are aware, for me, I'm an academician and also a researcher, but I also deal a lot with the community engagement. So the issue of research now, Mr. Kimera has put it, is quite very, very important. Why do we do research? Identify a problem, and that problem needs scientific information. Once you have data, scientific data, you are able to design programs, based on evidence, based on facts. So, we started doing research, in Uganda in the 60s, and then later on in the 90s, that's when we have to intensify. So, why did we do that? We wanted to, first of all, to have evidence which commodities are actually contaminated by aflatoxins. You have to do research. You know, is it milk? Is it maize? Sorghum, nuts, etc. Then, what is the exposure, the risk? This is where toxins sometimes may not pose a risk. If the levels are higher, than what is regulated, then the risk comes in actually. So, what is the risk? To what extent are aflatoxins affecting our population? Who is more vulnerable? You know, in terms of human beings, are they the children? Are they the elderly? Are they the sick? Now, in terms of animals, which animals actually, are susceptible? The poultry, rabbits, cattle, and if cattle, what are the levels that are actually, are lethal? So all that information is quite important when it comes to, designing programs, management programs. So when you are designing management programs, after getting this information from research, you are now capable of, telling exactly how to approach the problem. So that's the importance of research. So all these training programs that we have been having, we have been actually based on what has been found before. So whenever we design training programs, we talk about what are aftermarkets, or somebody definitely conduct the research to find out which organisms are responsible for causing the aflatoxin. And even the name came from aspergillus, for example, flavors toxins. So after discovering in the 60s that it was this fungus, aspergillus flavors, which was responsible for, the problem. So when we are now making people aware, we tell them why the name is that because of aspergillus flavors, a fungus being involved. Now, which commodities are highly, contaminated? Yes, we start now ranking that in Uganda, maize has been found to be highly contaminated, followed by sorghum, followed by walnuts, followed by cassava, something like that. So that now, when you're designing programs geared towards managing the problem, you know that we are going to start tackling with maize, especially if maize is the one which is highly consumed in a particular area. Where I am right now, and by the way, I think recently UBOS information has indicated that Teso region is the most hit by cancer, including cancer related to aflatoxin in the food stuffs, because people are consuming these susceptible commodities on a daily basis. In the morning, somebody can take porridge from maize. Immediately after that, they go for farming. Then the men come and they go around in midday. They go and start taking ajon. That ajono, is millet which is contaminated, and ajono actually have aflatoxins. Then they go back for lunch. They take a millet tea with the cassava, and then probably granite sauce. And in the evening, they take a posho with maybe groundnut. So the whole day, somebody is exposed to this problem. So research now tells us right. So when you are now sensitizing people, you have to tell them to diversify, to try to endeavor to diversify the food. At least you need to have in between sweet potatoes, fresh sweet potatoes, or matoke if possible. Yeah? So that or you eat a lot of greens, so that now you have got less of the exposure to aflatoxin. You know, then from there we started, talking about the dangers. Why are we concerned about aflatoxin? When it comes to economic impacts, it is research which tells us to what extent this country, is losing in terms of trade, in terms of money. So that if we are to export, if we are to determine where the problem comes from, is it maize which has been rejected a lot? Is it nuts, sim which has been rejected before by South Korea? So you can now through research you can predict, can use models that can predict, the losses in terms of money, that the country actually faces or the household actually faces, including buying, drugs for treating, aflatoxin effects. So you see, if you are talking about losses in terms of animals, like poultry or whatever, how much money is actually lost. All that is through research predicting, the the costs that are actually involved. So research has played a very important role, and we don't want to stop on research. We want to continue, all the time, because new varieties of crops are coming, on board. Researchers are doing a lot, the breeders are doing a lot to bring, for example, resistant or tolerant varieties of cassava, tolerant varieties of groundnuts, tolerant varieties of maize. So are these going to be actually, tolerant all through, or they're going to be hit by weather, the changing weather, the changing climate? So there are so many things that are coming out, where I am now, they are talking about the heat wave. Right now, animals are eating dry grass, because we have been proud that our food will not be actually highly contaminated with aflatoxin, because most of our animals, grazers, consume, fresh grass, because fresh grass is not going to contain aflatoxin. But now they're eating dry grass. Dry grass, maybe it is moldy. There are some farmers who are now adopting to feeding the animals on hay and silage. And how is that hay? Is it safe, or it may be contaminated? So you can see research is going to continue, and it is going to provide us evidence where we shall, put our emphasis when we are managing the problem. The other research that is actually now coming up is the control, you know, of aflatoxin, managing aflatoxin, elimination of aflatoxins. There are experiments which are being done to, for example, to ferment using ash, using some microorganisms, that can bind these toxins, using spices. There's some of these spices, the herbs, some of them have the binding capacity. So all those now technologies are being discovered as a result of research. And now the last one that I want to comment on is the simple, the simple kits that can farmers use, that farmers can use to tell that a produce is contaminated with aflatoxin. And that has been a very big challenge, because aflatoxin is not smell, they are not even visible to a naked eye. What in most cases, what people see are just the molds, but not the toxins. So how do you tell that a produce is contaminated at the farm level? So research is now trying to come up with the simple kits that can detect the toxins, including the whole grain without even crushing it, and then you are able to tell right away from the that there is a serious problem of aflatoxin in these grains, so they should be eliminated right at the farm level, so that you don't now incur the costs of including the grains in the food chain, and then they later on be rejected at the, for example, at a later level, of money. So that's why we are still saying that we researchers are still very, very important, and we have to continue with our research programs. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Professor. Those were quite insightful and rich sharing the importance of research, innovation, and the way you have shared it, you, it really rhymes well that when the research is done, it has to be communicated, awareness has to be done, disseminated, capacity building must be like you're doing right now where you are in Katakwi. And as you are doing all that, then it goes back that you have to look into the investment into making sure that research is rolled out, it doesn't stay in laboratories, and research is known by the public. So that means that as we are all doing that, there is a need of policy issues, regulation issues, investment issues that require people to go in and advocate. So, like you were saying, the kits and so forth, the costing aspect comes in as health of consumers is very key. Trade is very key. This is where I think the cost of kit will be it needs to be affordable, accessible, so that farmers utilize it rather than for it to be on the shelves. I don't know if you have a word or two on that.
Well,
I was saying that all this science, like the kit that will test aflatoxin right at source, has to be affordable, available, and accessible by farmer. So, what do you think would be the cost? How do we bring down the cost? If it is expensive, farmers will not be in position to access it, or even traders.
yeah, I think right now the kit that is available, I think being tested,
Mm,
is slightly costly. Just like you think about the moisture meters, you know,
yeah.
each moisture meter may be about maybe 500 AC plus 500, northern Uganda shillings, which may not be affordable by a single farmer. So if this kit is about the same cost, we are encouraging
Yes.
farmers to form cooperatives, form groups,
Okay.
farmer groups, so they can pool resources. So through that, you can be able to own, and one machine can actually serve so many farmers. Like where I am in Katakwi, they have got farmer field schools. So those
Yes.
farmer field schools, members can pool resources. They can actually own one, and then it serves them very well. So in that way, that can actually help them privilege the cost. Yeah. But otherwise, you are not going to get the one which costs, 2,000 shillings. No, it's not going to be possible for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much, Doctor. And like you have, Professor, like you have said, and the way people, different players talk about that doing farming as a business, you have brought in an aspect that we have known to be very effective in Africa and elsewhere, doing farming in cooperatives, bringing together the different synergies that will facilitate distributing the risks and also putting together collective bargaining, collective marketing, and so forth. So thank you very much, Professor. Let me not hold you here so that you go back and train those farmers to give us the best sorghum for our to give us the best maize, to give us the best peanuts, because it's one of the best areas that gives us a number of cereals that we use in our agri-food systems. So thank you very much, Professor, and all the best with the training. And I wish you the end of February. And thank you for the climax of our aflatoxin series in the month of February. Thank you very much, Professor.
Welcome.
Dr.
Welcome.
Agnes, you're welcome. Dr. Agnes, here I come. Thank you. Agnes, as Professor was sharing with us a number of things, and I know they were bubbling up, and you were thinking of them, looking at the legal, regulatory, institutional frameworks that exist, and with your perspective at local, national, region, and continental level, but even globally, you'll find that there are a number of things that we need to do. And today, as we are looking at kicking aflatoxins out of Uganda, where I asked other viewers and listeners in their respective countries to put where there is Uganda, to put their own countries. So, Agi, what looking at the legal frameworks, looking at institution, Professor has talked of the institutions, and what are the current efforts with you doing advocacy, policy advocacy, meeting regulators, advocating for budgets for agriculture? What are the experiences and what do we need to do as civil society and as a policy analyst? What needs to really be done in a practical context to see that we reduce on aflatoxins or even eradicate it? The floor is yours, Aki.
Okay, thank you so much, Henry. And I wish to congratulate you and congratulate Professor, but also the Humanist TV. For this far we have come. And please, thank you so much for liberating this whole month and dedicating it to a critical aspect of our food system, a critical aspect of our food safety, the issue of aflatoxin, of which we are still committed that we should kick this thing out of our food and out of our feed. So I think we deserve a pat on the back, and we thank God whose grace has sustained us up to this day of 28th February. But just to tell viewers that the struggle continues. This was an extra dedicated space, but the struggle must continue, and we should all take a conscious decision. We should be civically conscious to ensure that when these foods that Professor has talked about, happen to get into your hands, be civically conscious that there is aflatoxins, and you could be the promoter of it spreading through the food system. Reflecting on two things. Number one, the question you have asked me, but at the same time, the sharing that Professor Kaya has given. I think as a startup, let me start picking up from Professor Kaya to tell viewers out there that our agri-food system has evolved, and it continues to evolve because of the new challenges that keep emerging and the new opportunities. Of course, traditionally the agri-food system was entirely to feed a household, mainly. But now we are seeing the agri-food system evolving to be integrated in so many other things. And of course, new challenges emerge, which are very critical for this conversation that we have been holding for the whole of February. For instance, like Professor had said, animals used to graze. This is grazing time now. They would be out in the shrubs grazing. And now we are seeing the evolution of animals increasingly getting, what is the word? confined. They are getting confined. And that alone suggests that even the feeding of these animals is evolving. So an agri-food system cannot evolve when research is not evolving, when we are not investing in our research and development. The unfortunate bit is that we have been schooled to believe that we in Africa are not researching and we cannot do research, or our continent has not been doing research since time immemorial. And because of that narrative, we tend to consume other people's research agendas that do not necessarily respond to our context. But the fact that the agri-food system is evolving, then we need research. If the animals are no longer grazing and they are being confined and their feed has to be stored, their feed has to be processed, then that means we are bringing and we are inviting new protocols, regulations, conditions, and terms in that particular aspect. Previously, the vet was only concerned about ensuring that the fields are tick-free. And then if they are tick-free, then the animals will go and graze. So now we are now talking about feeding of animals in confined spaces and in confined environment. The issue of urbanization. In Africa, our traditions were you go to the farm. Actually, we used to store our food more in the farm than in the stores. The cassava would stay more longer in the farm than in the stores. We could not store cassava. You could harvest a banana and peel and cook. And now we are urbanizing and getting more confined, just like animals, requiring us to feed more on processed foods. We are feeding more on foods that have moved miles. They are moving miles, and then that suggested that then the research has to respond to that evolution. If you recall, Henry, the president was proposing to come up with an executive order, that groundnuts should only be shelled when they are going to be consumed. But because the food system has evolved, that may not be practical. It is going to be a little bit expensive because food has to move miles. He was making reference to his traditional household, where groundnuts would be safely be stored in their pods, and then you can open the pods, pound, and prepare. Now, groundnuts are moving from Katakwi, I don't know to where, from where to where. Peanut butter is moving from I don't know where to where. Because of urbanization and all these food trade and markets that weren't that common in the traditional Africa food systems. So now that suggests that we need more research professor to even support the president if he's going to come up with an executive order on how best can groundnuts be traded when they are out of their pods and they move miles, and then the president can position himself better if he chooses to make an executive order that is practical and responding to the context within which the agri-food system is prevailing. The last aspect that I can talk about in this perspective is the emergence of climate change. You see, everybody in Uganda is complaining of how hot it is now, but this is not a drying season for cereals. No, it isn't. The cereals are dried around June, July, after the long season. In March, April, and May, then the cereals are ready after those 90 days. But you'd see that we even start receiving dramatic rains. The environment is becoming so humid. So climate change, which was not yet in the tradition, society has come now to confront the agri-food system. That's another evolution. It's another evolution where we really need a lot of research and practical research that responds. For us here now, we are talking about how hot the heat wave, just like Professor has said, in Canada and in the US, who are leading on research in agriculture, they are talking about a different thing. So you would see that if we just import research and our researchers are not given an environment that is enabling them to come up with research that is context specific, then they are going to spend a lot of their time and brains working on research that may not practically answer our questions. But the issue is the agri-food system is evolving and will continue to evolve. And therefore, as it evolves, we need context-specific research. And this, even we need research to inform our policymakers, our policy decisions, the kind of regulations that we have, the kind of institutions that we establish. If we are going to establish institutions when we are still thinking that animals graze, then the institutions are going to be established and they are not going to respond to the issues. If we are still, our policymakers have not received the adequate context-specific research of how our food system is prevailing, they might come up with the institutions that are largely going to dwell so much in the traditional practice when the food system is aggressively getting into an urban food system, and we just need to look at the urban food environment, which traditionally was not an issue. So everybody runs quickly to talk about farmers. We need to research solutions for consumers. We need to research solutions for our health. We need to research solutions to respond to the levels of industrialization, but also the integration of our food system into the industrialization system. Where I'm seated now in a borrowed environment, I have spent a week with the multi-sectoral actors in the agri-food system, the Ugandan National Food Systems Coordination Committee, which is multi-sectoral, which is systemic in nature. And we are working on a very critical policy tool, which is the planning tool. How are we planning for our agri-food system? Viewers, how are your agri-food system in your particular country being planned for? Because in many cases, policy analysts do not think that plans and budgets are policy tools. For us at FRA, these are the most critical policy tools because they determine the policy decisions our governments are going to take at national, but also at local level. But the good news is, at Africa Union level, within the Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, CADAP, and a 10-year agenda that has been renewed in Kampala this year, the issues of aflatoxins feature prominently in that framework. Under that two strategic commitment to improve agriculture production, productivity, agro-industrialization, and trade, food trade in Africa, but also a strategy that is also talking about ensuring food security and nutrition. So the issues of aflatoxins are featuring prominently in Africa. Viewer, if you're not in Uganda, please, your head of state was in Kampala. I assure you, your head of state was in Kampala and renewed their commitment. So now go back to your Kampala, to your country, and try to find out how are these visionary commitments at continental level being domesticated within their planning and investment framework. That is what the teams in Uganda are doing here. For the whole of this week, domesticating these very beautiful inspirations into our investment plans and budgets. Henry and viewers, when we talk about policy, like I have said, People want to policy this, policy this, policy this, policy the other. To deal with aflatoxins, primary and cardinal intervention, we need investments. We need to invest in all these technologies. We need to invest in our research. We need to invest in education. We need to invest in our institutions. And if we are going to invest in all these areas, then the issues of aflatoxin control must feature prominently within the strategic interventions, indicators of performance in our national, sectoral, and decentralized investment plans and budgets. And then we get money, both public and private, and we do investments. We are not going to speak to aflatoxins just and then the aflatoxins run away from our words. We need to invest, and the investments that go to support the actors across the food chain, from the farmers to the consumers. Consumers too need those kits. And what makes these research solutions very expensive and unaffordable is because we are not planning to invest their production and commercialization within our own economies. We want to import them. Talk about a solution like Aflasafe that the Ugandan researchers have worked on. The farmers, the agri-food systems actors in Uganda can't afford it. Why? Because we can only import it from Kenya. And now, the last time I checked, the National Agricultural Research Organization only needed $10 million to establish a facility here. And we find the reasons of saying, that is very expensive, we can't find the money. I don't believe so. So let us focus ourselves to make sure that we align and mobilize investments, and we plan and become intentional if we are going to deal with aflatoxins. In Uganda, the last policy decision that I can talk about is Uganda is in the processes of establishing a Food and Agriculture Regulatory Authority, and this institution's core mandate is on food safety and the safety of the agri-food system. We need institutions on food across the world. I don't know who told Africans that food can be everywhere, however, by whoever, wherever. We need institutions, and I need to applaud the government of Uganda, and it is incumbent on the people of Uganda to support this initiative, because it is also possible that the government has a very good inspiration, but people need to be supported. And I invite all stakeholders to interest themselves in the framing of this particular institution to ensure that it serves the purpose and it doesn't so narrow, or it is not so wide to do anything. So that's a policy decision. Of course, we recognize that even as they are establishing the institution, they are strengthening the certification department, they are strengthening the agricultural extension system, and all of these other efforts. They are initiatives to support the medium, small, and micro entrepreneurs. I'm very happy that the coming financial year, more money on enforcement and surveillance has been allocated, is being proposed to be allocated to the Bureau of Standards. So there are all of these efforts that must be systemic in nature, with very, very strong and robust coordination mechanisms. So, Henry and viewers, I can only say that governments are too weak to regulate and manage a regularized food system. And therefore, in the case of aflatoxins, it becomes everybody's business. It is my business as a consumer. It is everybody's business, because when aflatoxin contamination goes beyond what is acceptable, nobody remains safe. There is nobody's livelihood that is secured. even if it is for you, a trader that think that you're lucratively going to benefit from commingling safe and clean grain in everything, you're going to pay that money to take care of your loved one at the Cancer Institute. And you'll also eventually pay for the funeral. I don't know if there is anyone generating wealth and your inspiration is to spend it taking care of your loved ones and convening funerals. So it is an issue that we all have a responsibility, and I'm convinced that as we are waiting for governments to put in place institutional, legal, and policy frameworks that they are struggling with, we should take civic duty to take responsibility. And then finally, what I could re-emphasize, Henry and viewers, is that we must invest. We shall talk, those of us who can talk, we shall invest in talking. We shall create the consciousness and the civic awareness, but we need to invest in our research to provide homegrown context-specific solutions. We need to invest in enforcement. We need to invest in education. We need to invest in infrastructure. We need to invest to respond to the new emergencies of urbanization, climate change, and others that were not part of our traditional system. The good news is kicking aflatoxins from our food system is possible, and yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Agi. That was beautiful, and you have a beautiful background, and you are speaking. It is as if the beautiful that must be bamboo. And when you look at the bamboo root network, whatever the shrub is, but that must be bamboo. And when you look at the bamboo root network, it goes down to the core, and then it forms a strong bond where the roots of one plant can go through another 10 plants and hold and have that strong foundation for resilience. And that is what you have just presented. That is what you have just shared. You have gone through the food system, its ecosystem, before farm and after fork. So I find that that has been quite very rich. And telling us where you are and what you are contributing to. These words that I'm going to share might not be part of the terminology, but as you are saying, civic consciousness and bringing in education, go in and tell the policymakers you are with, quality culture needs to be in everything we think. We need to think quality investments. Once we have quality investments, quality policy, quality regulations, quality institutions, thinking quality at every stage, we are going to be in position to kick aflatoxins or microtoxins out. And looking at those aspects to make sure and bring in issues where we have got quality culture in food safety aspects that will go through the food systems, quality infrastructure where extension services are of good quality, they recommend quality inputs, they recommend quality appropriate technology, will get quality produce, handled in a quality manner, processed in a quality manner, marketed in a quality manner, and consumed from a quality manner perspective. So Agnes, you have just given us a ride, a drive that is concrete and strong, bringing in the elements of consumption, bringing in, these days we need to tell people that when we say food, the answer next to it or the additional word should be feed. And we should say FF. We need to look for ways of making the two now twins, because in the food approach, food and feed are twins. Contaminated food, contaminated feed, we get sick. One of the parties affects the other, then we are all, the food producing animals are social, are economic, now they are a healthy problem to human consumers. So there's no longer saying that is garbage, let's give it to the animals. You'll get to know that the garbage you're giving animals is the garbage you're going to consume. And I liked yesterday, Aggie, when I asked you, when a friend was asking me how much aflatoxin is allowable in animal feed, and how does it compare with human beings or human allowable levels, and what are the fermentation on the aflatoxin levels. And I liked the way you responded to me when you gave me the 20 parts per billion, and then the aspects of infants and adults, going back the levels of infants in animals are nearly the levels of infants in human beings. And then you find levels of lactation both in animals and nearly the same in human beings. And takes me back, garbage in, garbage out. So with all these things, and I'm happy that you're going back to that meeting after sharing these beautiful things on the agri-food systems. And I really liked where you went, starting from the AU, the CADA, the strategic plan for 2025 to 2036, looking at the Kampala Declaration. All of these just brought me other thinkings. You recall that we had PACA. Now PACA coming up with the resolutions. We're having the AU Food Safety Authority. We're having the SPS aspects at the continental level. The REX also are having strategies to address all that. Now it comes out to the national. Then we would need to take this message to the local governments, where the biggest business of the agri-food systems is done at our local government. So I thought that I would bring in all these, and also you could chip in some of your parting shots with that wide scope, and so that you take in the quality culture and the quality infrastructure investment in that multi-sector thinking and discourse that you are in with regards to the agri-food systems for Uganda, whose experience you have always taken to the continental and the global level. So Aggie, you can give us some of your reflections from the many things that have kind of counted on your discussion. Aggie?
Thank you, Henry. My professional background is behavioral science, and I'm not about to leave. Every the other day, I get more interested in consolidating myself in understanding human behavior and human relations. And therefore, when you talk about food culture, by the way, it wasn't within the African food culture to make food unsafe. The issues of food safety were deep-rooted into the African food culture across the various societies. The only challenges that we are facing today is what I talked about, that our agri-food system is evolving to respond to the emerging challenges. But at the same time, when we talk about the safety culture, it is a deliberate effort that somebody takes, that everybody has to take. Just because we are just as we are cultured to dress up, I think we really need to put off those lenses, but also we must get the guilt when we do wrong. You see, trade and business, I don't know why trade and business brood greed. You see, Henry, greed and quality culture are things that we need to deal with concurrently and then break into the people's consciousness that if you're greedy here, whatever you have mobilized, you're going to lose it there. Interestingly, when you go and speak to various actors, they know the wrong practices, but they continue doing them simply because we have lost integrity. So quality culture, integrity, and managing greed move hand in hand. And for me, this has been my deliberate contribution, and I'll continue with this particular thread to restore integrity in our population. We need to do that. And if we restore integrity, it is going to be easier people to appreciate that food goes around and comes around. So what you mismanage is eventually what you eat or to what your loved ones eat. The other thing that I need to say as I part is that viewers, you need to know that interventions and implementations by all of these frameworks, like we have talked about them, they are not going to happen at Comesa, they are not going to happen in Addis Ababa, they may not even happen in Kampala. They happen at the grassroots where interventions are done. In the case of Uganda, do you realize, Henry, that everybody in Uganda stays in a local government? Wherever you find yourself, even where I'm seated right now, there is a local government. So we have a governance, an elaborate and comprehensive governance system. And this is where actually investments are happening. This is where practice is done. This is where decisions are done. And therefore, it should be of our great interest that our governments invest more at the base than at the top. Unfortunately now, in as far as the resources and investments are concerned, we have a tilted triangle, less resources on the ground and more resources at the top. I'm here to speak to you people, but also to speak to our duty bearers, that we need to tilt the resource triangle, and we push more resources where the people are. We push more resources where practice is being done and interventions are being done, and we invest there. Then it is going to be our leaders up there at the top will eat their money freely with no labor, because the work would then be already done. Therefore, interest yourselves in what your governments are doing in as far as the planning and budgeting are concerned. Because if they don't invest where things are supposed to happen, then we shall come back on another episode and we talk about these issues, even at household level. Where are we investing and how are we investing in our household food system? If we think we are just going to gamble around, it is likely that you're going to buy garbage, and the implications have over been shared on this series. The policy work is everybody's business. It is not any person's business. Even the policymakers are individuals that need a lot of engagement and enlightenment, and they are dealing with so many dynamics that in many cases certain things fall through the cracks of their decisions. We must remain alert, because my psychology professor told me that in every human being there is an inherent virtue to do good. So even with all those, we shouldn't condemn them. We should engage their inherent virtue to do good, and then they will do good, and we shall all enjoy the environment in which our food is produced, our food is handled, and eventually our food is consumed, because humans are for food. I greet you.
Thank you very much, Agnes. You have grounded it further. You have even toned it down. When you talked of that the primary level, you just reminded me that primary health starts at home, a household, and the best primary health one can have is having safe food at their own household, where safe food plays a major role. We look at food as a medicine. So as Agnes was winding up, and it is time for us to wind up, there are many things. We have looked at how policy needs to play a major role, right from continental, going to regional, national, local government, and household. Policy at household manifests many things. If the policy is to eat junk food, then there won't be good health in the household. If the policy is to eat safe, quality food, then we are going to have productive households. Whatever they will be bringing into the household will be of quality. Whatever they will be doing in their gardens or wherever they are working, they will take in quality. So we have looked at policy aspects. With coordination, when Agnes was talking where she's seated today, and when Professor was sharing with us where he is training, aspects of coordination came in. And with the agri-food systems, Agi talks about multi-stakeholder approaches, systematic approaches. Those require coordination. That is an aspect that has been grounded in our discussion as we wind up. Going into investment, quality, fully fledged investments in institutions to do research, institutions to roll out innovations, institutions and investments into investigations, surveillance, monitoring, doing testing, and then we look at how to do emergency. We should use local content. We should invest in our research to do local content rather than imported content. We have got different diseases. We have got different environments. So I loved that investment aspect to look at research, innovations, investigations, surveillance, monitoring, testing, and giving consumers and businesses results for better, sustainable businesses. We went further, marketing. How do we trace things that have gone wrong? How do we respond to them? How do we finance in our communication, consumer awareness, consumer education, effective communication for this result? So, ladies and gentlemen, it was a great pleasure. We have grown up February with a strong show. I would love to thank all my panelists and colleagues, Professor Kaya and Dr. Agnes Chirabo, for coming in and sharing with us, and also to thank our colleagues Bongole, Dennis in Entebbe, for a good producer, and all the others in other parts of Africa where Humanist Media Africa and Humanist TV is relaying programs, and all our colleagues in the global world. Thank you for watching. We'll be coming up with a new episodes in March, and most of those episodes are going to focus. The month of March, we have got Women's Day. In the month of March, we have got the World Consumer Rights Day. And the theme this year, a just transition to sustainable lifestyles. And what we have been discussing, we have been contributing a just transition to sustainable lifestyles. What we have discussed all through the month of February is how are our lifestyles using policy, using regulations, using institutions. So I would love to have Agnes bringing in his human behavior, psychology aspects on how best we can have just transition to sustainable lifestyles. So we look forward to being with you in March, and thank you very much, everybody. I wish you a superb weekend until next Friday. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.